Greetings, I am Lies.
And I am Scandal.
And let's play a game together. All right, so
Hi.
last time my good friend got really incredibly scandalized at the model Asian trope. And
I apologize. Like it was there the whole time, and even me going off about it, going like, "Oh yeah, that would be really cool if she was Asian." So one of the reasons why I tend to have problems with it is, number one, we also know somebody who does actually have Asian descent.
He is half Asian. He is exactly like right here what we have presented in Karen.
Exactly. And
except that his dad was German
yes.
instead of American.
Yes.
Anyway.
And the biggest problem that I have with stuff like this, and that I think he has also mentioned, is basically like a level of going, number one, Asians are frequently, and I will say probably usually what people tend to think of in terms of Asian usually actually tends to be like Japanese or Chinese.
I say in this case we're not talking about Asians. We're talking about Japanese.
Yes,
specifically. We're not talking about Asia, all of Asia, Asians.
Yes.
We're talking about Japanese.
And I'm saying
our friend is half Japanese, half German, and so Karen's mom is Japanese. She's half Japanese.
Right.
And the Japanese Asian stereotype specifically is rooted in actual Japanese practices, and our friend has expressed the suffocating nature of the high standards that come with a Japanese perfectionism, especially in reference to trying to look good enough in an American culture.
Right, and also in the same way too, where I've seen some individuals talk about it, even just being from like Vietnam, and going like, I have felt like, where they have said that I have felt basically oppressed in the sense of going like, it doesn't matter if I was too loud, I was considered to be loud and obnoxious, because I wasn't American enough for the Americans, but then I wasn't Asian enough then for the Asians anymore, because everybody's like, well, that you're just too aggressive, you're too much this thing, and it's like, no matter
You can't be
what,
either of your culture effectively at that point, but...
Which feels a little bit like cultural genocide, and is also...
Erasure, I would tend to say erasure.
Yes.
I'd say...
But, like, so, the reason I am especially frustrated with it is because it is an actual fucking problem, in reference to also, like, what our friend has talked about, where he's like, again, that thing of feeling so ridiculously oppressed, also being considered not attractive enough, because by the overwhelming white majority in the United States, and actually, it's reinforced by basically a lot of the United States, just period, of going, Asian men are not attractive.
I say, and in
Asian
this case,
individuals,
though, going Asian women are very attractive, incredibly desirable, because they're thought to be more submissive, more agreeable. Again, these are stereotypes, these are standards, they are not describing individuals,
and I was also
going to
say
about what the game is presenting.
That too is that particular stereotype is also though used to actually in the U.S. shame other minorities.
And what
aggressively,
I would come up with,
going, why can't the Latinx all be like,
like
the Asians? Why can't the black community be like the Asians? They're so nice, they're so submissive, they'll do your work for you, they're smart and intelligent, and you know what, they're just really not in the way, and they're non-threatening, and they're non-sexual. Like, so some background also for me, my mother has explicitly gone off about the fact of like, this is why, isn't there feminizing agents in soy?
Yeah.
Which is incredibly offensive. So if you know anything about basically any of the hormones or materials in soy and soy products, there isn't an estrogen in there. It is a phytoestrogen, which is a plant estrogen. It's just a similar compound to the actual estrogen, so that's what scientists decided to call it. But they are not the same goddamn thing, and the only thing that it has ever affected has been basically male sheep that they figured out in like the 1940s, and that was the only study, and it was one of the most offensive fucking conversations I have ever had with my mother in relation to that.
Japanese men and
are super effeminate.
Are really feminine because they eat soy. At any rate, if you want more information on the soy debate and myths, there's a really cool video by H. Palmer Guy about soy. We will link that in here, and in the meantime, I'm really just feeling sort of disappointed that the behaviors that they have for Rachel, of her being really put together, really strict, really clean, really controlled, fits with that sort of model Asian stereotype. But it's also funny because it is an interesting, I can actually see it as also sort of a light subversion though, because she's acting more like the male stereotype in that way.
She kind of is.
Which is not your submissive, passive Asian woman.
Except that
again,
also,
I'm not saying that fixes it or anything, it's just an interesting piece to it.
But to me, I would almost argue though that she's still though really trying very hard to be polite, and in that sense though she's never really, like, Luke also is also shown to be basically a bumbling goddamn moron, and even me going like, well, she's really high performing, but that's the expected thing for Asian culture. That's what you're gonna do. You're gonna be high performing.
That's
you're gonna
what
have an exacting standard.
And the thing I would have been is going, okay, so if we're gonna, how, again, did Rachel and Luke ever end up together?
That's what I wanted to know.
Again, what I asked, like, has she become basically more directly aggressive and more assertive because basically he was so bad at being in a relationship with her, because it was so painful and frustrating that while having a child and needing to advocate for her child,
right,
so that, you know, her kid could have or do anything,
right,
she had to learn to be differently assertive. And so it really was just sort of a passive experience initially. Like, I would be very interested in, if those characters are who they are, how did they get together initially, and then what has changed since then?
And the reason also we find this to be frustrating too is that it does cause some really harmful stereotypes. Like, for example, for our Russian audience, they have also explicitly sometimes complained to us, at least as far as we've seen from, like, from at least one of them, of going, like, it's been really frustrating where everybody just goes, all Russians are alcoholics.
All Russians are one thing or another. Actually,
they're bears and vodka.
Yeah, from a few of, we've just, from a Russian
like,
audience,
and some people have
like,
really...
the generalizations are really hard as far as everyone's an alcoholic, and it's just cold, and you just drink alcohol, and there's bears.
And that's it.
And that's your whole thing.
And
anyway,
they're like, this, I don't
so
like.
we're going to choose flowers from all of the entire continent and culture of all of Asia.
And multiple different countries, not even just, you know...
Like I said, continent, the entire Asian...
I mean, do you consider, though, like, Japan to be a continent? Because that's small.
The entire Asian conglomerate of all, like, of all unified Asiatic things.
Right.
Period. Flowers from there.
Yep.
It's just like the other gardens. What should we put here?
I
know. Cool.
Honestly, she might actually know, which would be really cool in terms of representation. But the fact that we have no context and... Are those lavender?
Don't know.
What?
Is that supposed to be bamboo over here? That's supposed to be bamboo. It's brown, though.
That's
and
interesting. I don't know. So I can't tell. I'm like, why can't we have then basically more access than to, like, Karen's culture? How much does she know?
Also, when she says, I know, again, where is she getting these ideas from? And are these things, if this is meant to be basically accessible to a really American audience, going... why not use the really stereotypical things that Americans associate with Asians? Like, use the bamboo, use sakura blossoms, use a ginkgo tree. Like, you really go super stereotypical. You know, put in a Zen garden, if you will.
Right.
So that way, if you're trying to access your American audience without them having to have deeper knowledge,
I'm honestly actually trying to figure out which ones, like, plants they're showing. So I just went and Googled it because I'm annoyed.
So these are, could be Asian lilies, but the leaves look way too round for that.
They also look way too low.
Like, yeah, Asian lilies aren't usually that. I mean, they can only be they are too low based on the fact they're about as tall as Lily's foot.
Right? I'm like, I don't know.
I'm going with that. So we're going to keep moving. Nice choice. Look at her doing the dance. She's doing it.
Aha!
Oh, God. That's hilarious.
Oh, look, it's the Fortnite dance that everybody was shitting on.
It's not a Fortnite dance.
But
it's used in Fortnite.
I know, but that's why everybody knows it, is because it's the Fortnite dance, even though it's not, yeah.
I thought they called it something else. I ran into it called something else as a different name.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
And then it apparently moved into Fortnite. Anyway, that's great.
Mom has a lot of art books at home with Japanese gardens in them.
It
also sounds like...
Your mom collects art books?
So I would like to know, so to me, this sort of sounds like basically her mother hasn't really exposed her daughter much to, I would say, basically Asian culture. And I'm not saying it's necessarily required, but that seems really sad.
On the other hand,
she has no connection because, as far as I know, like, Japanese flower ceremonies and tea ceremonies are actually really important. And she's like, yeah, she has all these art books, in which
saying she has no connection to it would mean she has no connection necessarily to Japanese gardening.
But
she can have a lot of connection to other things, and having still using Japanese terms for her grandma and her grandpa means she has certainly some connection. So
not necessarily
some connection for her to know.
Yeah.
1, my mom's Japanese. 2, my grandpa and grandpa are Japanese. 3, this is what you call them in Japanese. That is some connection, and we know so little about her and have had such a vague picture of her.
That's true.
We have no idea how much connection.
But that's what I'm saying, though. To me, though, that reads as basically that's so vague that feels like she has no connection. Does that make sense then? Of like we know so little.
We have no connection to anything she likes, is interested in, cares about.
We don't know about Luke either.
The only thing we know about her now is that she's half Japanese. She knows her grandparents on her mom's side are Japanese. And how to say, how to terminology them in Japanese. She is okay with flowers now because we presented it. Doesn't care about the name of her dog because Roxy is now fine and changed without any interest. And really just likes telling people what she doesn't like and is interested in her phone. That's it. That's all we really know about her.
And she apparently doesn't do anything on her phone.
And she is having drama with her family. Because of their, divorce.
Well, I would say probably legitimate.
But I was going to say, art books are a very specific thing. So unless she's using that term out of context, like art books, rather than like catalogs or rather than like, God, what are those ones called? There's another type of book that I have several of them that are basically like interior design books or exterior design or gardening books, that kind of thing.
Right.
They're not specifically art books by artists.
Right.
And so I think that's an interesting way to call it and going, does she have art books? Does she have like Hayao Miyazaki books? Does she have like, what's his like, the Vampire Hunter D art?
Yoshitaka Amano?
Yeah, does she have Yoshitaka Amano books?
Like, that's very anime though, in regards to like doing things that would be more culturally relevant. I don't know, like Miyazaki.
Who does an art book of gardening?
I don't know.
I would be interested. Anyway.
Honestly, it could also be a cultural thing, which would be interesting, but we're not connected to this
so we don't
at
know.
all. This feels
and again, if you're going to use stereotypes that are accessible to an American audience, you have to be accessible to your American audience. So that's the sort of dissonance that I'm getting here, is going that...
But you don't have to. Why not educate people? So
this is what I'm saying, is based on what they have done so far in this game, they're making tropes that are American accessible, American common kind of things. You're doing men tropes that are really known to an American audience. Women tropes that are really known to American audience. Specifically a white, middle class, or lower class American audience.
Feels really, number one, racist
and then
really
suddenly
fucking sexist.
You run into places where you go, now I have no access to this thing, so are you so totally changing your tone and going a different direction? Now we want you to think and extrapolate, or are you just not adding as much of the same accessible information that you were before? It's sort of changing your basically approach to the information.
Yeah, but the thing is they're assuming though everybody that would get to be involved. I don't know. I'm just like, it still fucking pisses me off. I'm like, you're not really challenging much, and then you keep going back.
It is an art book. She's talking about paintings.
I just made it look like it looked in this one painting.
It's an art book with paintings in it. That's interesting. Do you like art? Are we gonna learn something about you?
I like video games. Those are art, right?
They are.
Actually, it's a really
if movies are art, video games are art.
Yes.
That is just there.
Though honestly, I always love that thing where they're being like, video games are art, and then the second you criticize them for basically being thoughtless or being extremely whatever the fuck your terms might happen to be in terms of being then an art critic, people get mad and go, they're just video games! Shut up! You can't criticize them!
Right,
which is where
it's art, it's writing, it's literature, and you go, okay, well let me do literary critique on a video game. Well, it's just a game.
Well, you're not allowed to do that.
Which
Excuse me, take your videos down.
Depends on who you ask, probably.
I asked Mom, and she said, any experience created by artists must necessarily be art, even if I don't personally enjoy it.
You know what? That's actually very thoughtful, and the fact that she remembers that perfectly and has had all of her other stuff makes me have a harder time with her personality again.
You do not know what you want to do with this
actual 4-year-old. My parent perfectly in this way, but you know, it's Bulgaria, not malaria.
Like
it sounds weird. All right, that seems fair. Did you ask your dad too?
Yeah, Dad says video games rot your brain, and also that he can never beat the Battletoads jet bike level. Okay, fuck you. Battletoads is actually really goddamn hard. And like the jet bike level, isn't that like literally the opening level to that game?
I have no idea. I don't know.
If I remember correctly.
It's okay.
So I forget, but like Battletoads is goddamn hard. Battletoads is notorious for being hard. Mm-hmm. And even at the time, people were like, holy shit, Battletoads. It was like one of those dude bro games that people would love going off, going like, get good. Like that was one of the earlier get good games, and I'm just like, oh.
All right, Lily. So what do you think about Luke now?
She doesn't care.
There's no response to that. You really have no response to that. You respond to the mom one, and then with hey, what about you? That's it. We just say nothing.
Other than basically, I'm going to constantly, like, shit on your dad. But, you know, that's okay.
Choose Asian flowers. We're going to choose more Asian flowers. Next flower by design, Miss Kawakami?
Kawakami? Is that her last name?
And when the hell did we learn that? And how the hell do we know that?
What the absolute shit? We just went, hi, I'm Rachel. When the fuck did we learn their last name? Wouldn't that be goddamn it? Yeah.
Luke has never said it.
Rachel's never introduced herself.
It's never been like, unless Rachel said, hi, I'm Rachel Kawakami.
No, she didn't.
Missed it. No. Like, we have not seen that.
She said, hi, I'm Rachel.
Yes. All right.
You must be Luke's friend.
Next flower bed design, Miss Kawakami?
Gross! That makes me sound like a teacher.
Like, how do we know your name? Is that your name? Is this how you're introducing your name?
I'm
to the
also
reader?
like...
Okay, criticism here. Please do not introduce your name to the reader that way. It should be more on screen. Now, I've criticized this game a couple of times about going, so many of your actions are in the narrative initially, like every single one of them, and then you start slowly adding actions that aren't in the narrative. And I get that that can be a style, but then adding parts of the story that are suddenly here without being in the narrative, this is essentially a first-person Lily game, even though we're not in Lily's head. But being in her dreams puts us in her head. So, and having these experiences with her, we should know what she knows, and as a reader we should basically be exposed to when she learns the information.
This is frustrating.
It would be very desirable and bring people in more. All right, a teacher.
I don't even know. But how about this one?
Okay.
Sakura blossoms.
Maybe there's no leaves of any kind. I'm not sure.
Which is interesting.
All right, more bamboo.
More bamboo.
And I don't know what that one is. And
maple. Yeah,
maple.
Japanese maple tree and
so
more
these
bamboo.
Look way too small, so I kind of want to do that. I feel like this one's going to cover up whatever the hell we're supposed to put.
I love the fact that Karen's over the tree and the dog is under the tree, and there looks like there's no depth difference because everything is slightly laid back a bit, so you can see the entire illustration. Does that make sense?
It also makes the tree look super short with the way they're standing. Like this is a teeny little tree. You could just pat the top of it. Pep.
Hello.
So I'm just going to go with this one.
Sure.
We could change it later if we want to. Gorgeous. Don't you mean bamboo-horrific?
Right. I'm also like, if Karen is playing Fortnite, she's clearly more involved and actually has way more interests. That's the thing that's fucking frustrating me, being like, why would you present this? And then you cannot keep track of her age, her language style, or the things that she would know. I'm like, this feels very much like basically a derogatory statement towards children, and I don't like it. I'm really honestly tired of adults who seem like going, well, kids are just annoying. Kids just don't understand things. Wow, kids are mystical and say hello. Kids say the darndest things.
However, in the show, Kids Say the Darndest Things, which ran for quite a few years, and they talked to anywhere between 3-year-olds to 7-year-olds, so it was a very, very young audience.
Right.
You had amazing answers, even from your 3-year-old guests. And you had full, complete, beautiful sentences, and it was a really good example, honestly, of how kids talk, because it's not how they talk that makes them young. It is this type of extrapolations they draw that makes them young. Right. It is the type of thing where you get that vine going, look at all those chickens. This is a 2-year-old saying, look at all this kind of specific animal. They're wrong about the kind of animal because of their education level, but they know exactly how to structure that sentence and exactly how they're using it. They're indicating the horizon of where all of them are and what they are. They just are missing one crucial piece of information.
So, my friend, but what I'm talking about basically is the cultural experience, though, of Kids Say the Darndest Things, because I've mostly, whenever I've run into adults talking about kids, mostly I remember as a child, and I also remember watching younger cousins, or basically as I got older, just watching people with their kids and just being like, God damn it, I don't know what your problem is. You are such an idiot, basically. Ugh. Or being like, I'm gonna make fun of you, or go, God, just kids say the darn, and this really patronizing, basically condescending sort of tone. And this is what frustrates me with Karen, and this seems to be really indicative of how a lot of adults really, to me, look at kids. You don't want to have a growing person who will eventually change and is learning things from you and is looking at you as a teacher. You want an object that will reinforce your worldview and assert your value in your society. They are an object or a tool for you to gain status. And it pisses me off because you can see it very heavily in these types of games, to me, because they're not actually characters. They're just weird accessories that get in the way of your plot or basically add to it in a charming, and the kid can say the dumb line because the adults need to have the cool lines or some shit like that.
And the thing is I would say that in a lot of the romance that I've read, and I haven't read a whole lot, there is this experience of if kids exist, they're often poorly written. On the other hand, this happens in a lot of basically media for adults. Kids tend to be poorly written, but also if you look at media for kids, the kids that aren't the main characters can be poorly written. Yeah. Or you could just have them strangely written, they're very incongruous kind of thing. And so it's very challenging to write a character as a whole complex person character anyways, and a lot of people struggle with it, but it's even more challenging to write an undeveloped whole complex person character, one that is really much more in the beginning of their cultural assimilation journey, because you do have in children that intelligence and that awareness of people and their environment, right? But you just don't have the context for it. They're basically tiny foreigners showing up and not knowing the language,
which is fine.
I would say, but if we don't teach them They don't get it. So there's this one little vine I want to reference really quick.
Fine,
basically,
fine.
you get someone and they're going, I just found out today that my birthday is on the day that I was born. How cool is that? And the thing is it basically, a lot of people laughed at them and been like, that's so ridiculous. How would you not know? If you have never had that connection directly made for you, your birthday is a celebration that happens annually. Period. It's just a party. The day you were born is the day you were actually born on. Unless someone or something connects those directly for you, and a lot of people glark it from context, which connects it for them, you don't actually know. And that's a lot of things. For the context thing that I mentioned before, such as like the cat and the turkey and the strainer kind of thing, where if you don't have context, you don't always pick it up on your own, and sometimes you do need it explained to you.
Except for the fact that for me, most of the time, whatever I'm seeing is basically a lot of basically insider group shaming of the weird outsider, not going like, hey, let's be inclusive, let's, encourage the child, or let's just go, that's okay that you don't know that, you don't have to. And in fact, some ways, that might point out some weird inconsistency that you have in your own society, but we use it basically as a tool to aggressively shame or harm each other, and that fucking pisses me off. Like, it's the biggest amount of bullshit I've ever heard of being like, you're not encouraging people to connect, you're basically going, look at this weird, dumbass outsider who will never understand unless we aggressively shame them and shove them out on the stocks and then expect them to just figure it out.
Or you get this experience of just going, well, if they don't figure it out, you can't fix stupid, which I keep hearing in older generations and pisses me off.
So tired of it. Anyway,
have you ever gone to work with your mom?
Yeah, but it's not any fun. She just kind of looks at buildings all day.
So
some people
architect?
Yeah, right. Sometimes she kind of puts her hands in front of her face and makes a rectangle with them and nods.
So your mom's not talking about what she's doing very much, it sounds like. I like your mom.
Why?
For making it hard for
Unless you're basically going to be like, I will fix the relationship between the child and their parent. Because that's what I'm doing everywhere. Because the parents won't actually talk to the child and they won't go get fucking therapy like goddamn everybody needs to. She likes you too.
That is a weird way to go. My mom does all this weird stuff that's inaccessible to me and doesn't make any sense.
Segue.
I like your mom. She likes you too.
And again,
if that's a different tone of somehow of like, if that was supposed to be Karen being really clever and edgy and like an in-joke kind of playful, and then we go, I like your mom, basically also endorsing the way you put that was fun and I like you, I have no access to that.
I don't either.
She does? And there's our insecure Lily who needs validation from everybody else.
There we go. Finally, there's
the character.
She thinks you kick Dad's butt. Sometimes boys... No.
That's what she said.
No. Sometimes boys just really need their butts kicked, she said.
Yeah, except for, okay, in my opinion, I don't think that's accurate of anybody. I don't think people just need to be beaten into someone else's opinion of shape, and that is what fixes or helps them.
No, and in a lot of cases...
Here's Lily. They really do. But we're specifically gendering this as well. Not people need their butts kicked.
Boys.
Not, some people need just help or direction or pushed into, or like leadership. It's boys need their butts kicked, and I am not really a fan of that at all. And Lily going, I'm going to be insecure and need like validation and also have an experience of going, I'm not okay without a relationship and I can't connect to men unless it being a relationship or a total aggressive like push, like shove away. Like the only relationships we've seen her have with men is I am super uncomfortable around you, Mr. Jones. I am super dismissive of you, her cousin Larry.
Yeah.
And I am into you is Luke. Like she doesn't know how to interact with men. Anyway.
Whatever.
Thank you so much for joining us for this round.
We appreciate it. If you like what we do, though, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Honestly, if you do like what we talk about, feel free to also talk to us. We obviously have a lot of opinions, and we'd love to also hear yours. Sometimes these issues are very complex, and
additionally, this is like a live blogging reaction. We don't think about beforehand what we're going to say. We experience this at the same time as you, and in that way, they are essentially a live video of us going, the first time I reacted to it, this is what I felt. When I saw this, I was totally blindsided by it. And later, we can come back and go, you know what, maybe I didn't, in the moment, with no preparation, come up with the best possible way to say that, but it's really nice when you guys come in and go, hey, have you considered this, or I'd like to also add this, or I feel you so hard. It's really nice.
Yes, absolutely. And also then if you'd like to actually support us more directly, please feel free to go check out our Ko-Fi and our Patreon. We got some links in the description down below, and I have been Scandal.
And I have been Lies. And it was great playing with you. Bye!